Hello, everybody. I'm Shane. I'm from Mastra. I'm one of the co-founders, and welcome to AI Agents Hour. Today, we're going to be talking about a bunch of different things. We're going to be talking how to build AI agents with Mastra and NextJS. We're not going to dive into the code so much today, as just talk about overall architecture and how you might structure a project that uses Mastra agents with NextJS. And it is going to be a little bit universal. You don't have to be using NextJS. I think a lot of the concepts are going to apply. And honestly, you don't even have to be using Mastra to probably think about the architecture of this. But I think it's useful to pick two pieces of technology that, at least I've talked to a lot of people that are using and use that as kind of a baseline for how you might architect a project. We are going to have a special guest come in and do an AI security corner. So we're going to have Allie join us. We're going to be talking to a few hackathon guests, and we're also going to be talking to someone from the Mastra team, talking a little bit about how we do and how we think about content and our content strategy at Mastra. So with that, if you are not already, you can follow me on X. Also, if you are not already signed up, you're running out of time, but there's still a little bit of time. We do have a Mastra.build hackathon going on right now. Submissions are due tomorrow, I believe at 8 a.m. Pacific time. So there's still time if you want to get a small project in tonight if you haven't started. If you are already working on it, you still have time to improve it. So get those submissions in. If you are not signed up, go to Mastra.build. You can learn all about it, get signed up. But before we jump in, I see we're having some people start to kind of funnel into the live stream. This is live, so if you are on YouTube, if you're on X, if you're on LinkedIn, you can drop a comment and I'll see most of them and respond to most of them if I can get to them all. So, just like this. Hey, thanks for sending a comment on X. And also this one. So please, let me know along the way if you have questions, and I will do my best to answer them. If you are in the hackathon, I would be curious, for those actually watching, please leave a comment. How far along are you? Are you feeling good? Are you feeling like you're going to get the submission in time? Or do you think you need some more time? Because unfortunately you can't have more time, but I'm just curious how everyone's feeling. I know I've seen some different states of projects. We had someone come on Tuesday and show a really great project. So we have a few people coming on today. I'm interested to see kind of what they're doing and how things are going for them. And then, we will likely have some people come on tomorrow as well and show off some of the things. We will be live streaming the awards ceremony. So if you want to tune into that, that'll be tomorrow. Let me check the time on that. That is, the closing ceremony is at noon or 10 a.m. Pacific time. So submissions are due at 8 a.m. Pacific time. We'll be doing a live award ceremony at 10 a.m. Pacific. And then we'll be doing another live stream later in the afternoon where we have a couple more special guests coming on. We'll talk a little bit about a recap of the hackathon. We have a couple other founder friends coming on to talk about some of the things that they're doing. And it's going to be a lot of fun. So why don't we go ahead and get into the main content of this stream. So give me 1 second here, and we're actually just going to live in Excalidraw for the next probably 15 minutes. And I do want to talk about, just in general, how you'd architect, if I were starting today, how I would think about architecting a Mastra and an NextJS site. If I'm building some kind of AI agent, some kind of agentic workflows, how that might actually look, how to think about it, how to make the decisions of what to go with, and what I've been seeing talking to a lot of Mastra customers. And thank you, my friend. Yes. In that, you should, if you're looking for a fun follow on X, follow. I don't know how to pronounce your name. Is it Versane? But definitely a fun follow. And Jeremy, apparently you've got 5 projects you're working on for the hackathon. So definitely interested to see. If you want to show one of them off, you can come on tomorrow. I'll make a spot for you. But let's go ahead and jump in and let's just do a little architecture. Let me share my screen and we will see what we can get done in the next 15 minutes. All right. So the first thing I wanted to just highlight in the Mastra docs, we do have this integrate Mastra into your NextJS project. So this is a good place to look. We also have guides for using with Vercel AI SDK, with Copilot Kit. We don't have a framework guide yet for Assistant UI, but I'm going to mention Assistant UI as well. We do have an example in our monorepo with Assistant UI. And our playground uses Assistant UI, so there are examples in the wild of that. But we will be putting together some better docs for them as well. But let's just talk about if we were to be building a NextJS site and we were wanting to use Mastra to build these agents, how could we architect it? So there's kind of 2 different approaches. So we have approach 1. We'll just call this like, I don't know, I'm making up these names, like a bundled application. This means, in this case, I am going to bundle my agents and my NextJS site into basically one NextJS app. Agents plus NextJS. So let's just say we're building some Mastra agents. Mastra agents plus NextJS bundled together. So there are some pros to doing this, and we'll talk about what that would look like. And then we'd have another option. And we'll just call this like a separate AI backend. And we'll just say NextJS is the client, calls the Mastra backend. So with Mastra, out of the box, you get essentially a REST API for all your agents, for all your workflows. So you can deploy Mastra completely separately and then just integrate into NextJS through either through NextJS in an API route, or through you can technically even do it through the front end, although there's some security concerns you have to work out. But ultimately, you can kind of architect it in that way. So let's take a look at what this might actually look like if you were to actually build this thing. So in this case, I'm going to have my NextJS site, NextJS app here, and I'm probably going to deploy this to somewhere. This could be deployed to Vercel or Netlify or wherever else you might want to deploy your NextJS application. But inside that application, I would obviously have, if this was like a chat interface for some kind of agent application, I'd probably have like my chat component. And this is going to be very simplified, of course, but I'm just hopefully you can kind of get the idea of how I would start to think about it. So you basically have like the UI, right? You have maybe chat components that are React components that live in the UI, and you're probably going to have you'll have like a /API/chat route, something like that. And so that this chat component is going to interact with. And then you're also then going to, in this route, you're going to just basically directly talk to Mastra. So I'm just going to put this all as just one thing, just Mastra itself. And you might have inside Mastra, you could have, agent/ agent 1 and agent/agent 2 and a workflow / my workflow, whatever the ID of your workflows are, right? So all these things are basically just agents or workflows that you built in Mastra that you are then just directly importing. And this is just by import. So you're just importing Mastra, you're getting the agent. So if I were to pseudocode this, you're basically going to import Mastra, and then you're going to do something like mastra.getAgent, agent1. It's actually probably more like, let's just rename these to make it a little cleaner. And then you inside your, and this is of course all happening inside this chat route, you're going to call, you would call something like agent.stream, and then you just pass in your messages, something like that. Now this is obviously some pseudocode, right? Like this isn't, I wouldn't guarantee this thing's going to run, but it's pretty close. And this chat component, what you get here is there's a lot of options of how you can actually build the UI part of this application, right? There are options such as you can use AI SDK, and you could use something like use chat, just the use chat hook, and then you'd be able to like talk to this route. You could return this stream, and you'd be able to just use that. There's also Copilot Kit is a great option for building really interactive interfaces. And then there's Assistant UI. And there's probably others that maybe I don't even know about or that are coming out now, right? They're just like there's a lot of really good competition in the framework space. There's a lot of really good competition kind of to how to build these front end components. And just checking the chat here, very sane, like very insane. Got it. And another question here: will you guys support Next 3? I mean, you should be able to use it. I guess if you can't, I'd like to know why. So ultimately, we might not have a guide for it, but a lot of this, you know, I believe that because Mastra can be, you know, bundled with pretty much any TypeScript project, or it can be run kind of standalone, there should be no reason it can't work with Next 3. But feel free to jump in if that's not your experience. Happy to try to help you debug it. All right, so as you see, we have a bunch of options here, right? We're ended up, but the nice thing about this, so the benefit of doing this kind of bundled application approach, let's just, you know, write down here. I'm just going to write like some pros and cons here. Pros, make this a little bit bigger. The pros is like easy deployment. You just deploy everything together. Your agents, your front end, it's all tied together. So that's probably the biggest benefit is you have that ease of deployment. But there are some, you know, maybe some things that aren't as good about this approach, which is it's kind of, I would say one of the things that you can sometimes run into is just like serverless function timeouts. You're kind of locked into a single front end. So I'd say you kind of have a little bit of pros and cons, and there's probably more than this, but I'm simplifying a bit, that if you're looking to get started in a somewhat easy way, bundling it together makes a lot of sense because it makes just that really easy deployment story. But a lot of times, especially if you're building long-running workflows, if you're building agents that have lots of tools, you might start to run into some of these serverless functions. You can increase those timeouts, of course, but depending on where you're deploying to, you can have issues, and sometimes it's harder to debug when everything's kind of together. So you don't have this separation of concerns. And also it becomes a little bit more tricky if you do want to add some other kind of front end. Let's say you wanted to add, you know, we have a lot of people that are building either desktop apps with Electron, mobile apps with Expo. We have people that are using Telegram bots or Discord bots. And so then you'd be building something like, okay, let's say I just built a Discord bot or a mobile app. Well, now does my mobile app just hit my Next API route and I run Mastra in there, it just gets to be, the architecture can start to get confusing. So I see a lot of people when they're just starting, they go with this approach, and because it works really well, it's like probably the easiest to get started with. I wouldn't necessarily say it's the best, most scalable, but it is probably the easiest. Now you can go through another alternative here, which is we have this idea of kind of separating out our AI backend from our Next.js site. So in this case, you have your Next.js app. I can probably just copy some of this stuff over. We'll see how this works. Copy paste is our friend. And I still have all the same options on the front end, right? I mean, I still have my opportunity to use, AI SDK's use chat or whatever, Copilot Kit, Assistant UI. I still have all those options available to me, of course. And I still very likely would have this, some kind of API routes. But the difference here is that instead of having Mastra built in, I'm actually, see if I can grab this, there we go. I'm actually having Mastra as a separate service. And so we end up with, I guess, kind of the same thing here. So I'm running Mastra. I still have my agents, but it's deployed somewhere else. And then on this side, I'm basically using Mastra client, which, let's find the docs for that. Where are they? Mastra client SDK. So we have this Mastra client SDK that you can use. You can kind of see here, this is the code of what you would do. So I'm just going to grab this. And in this case, you have Mastra client. So the pseudocode, in this case, this code would probably run, but the pseudocode would look something like that. And again, if I was running this locally, I'd probably just be using localhost. But if I deployed this somewhere, whether this is deployed to, Mastra could be deployed to Vercel, could be deployed to Cloudflare, could be deployed, should be able to be deployed anywhere, or Mastra Cloud, which we're currently just in beta. But you could essentially point this to that URL. And now in your chat route, you are using Mastra client to reach out to Mastra. And I wonder if there's probably an example of like .generate. So why don't we grab that and add this. And this would be, in our case, be agent 1. And we could generate, or, ultimately we're just going to call stream. And I guess this is messages. And so I probably need to fix that over here because this would be the same thing. So something like that. So then in this case, again, this looks like it's more code, but it shouldn't be that much more. But you kind of have a little bit different architecture if you see here. So again, now let's kind of walk through the pros and cons of kind of doing this separate approach. Let's grab this. So pros, separation of concerns. That's sometimes nice depending on your the complexity of what you're building. Supports multiple front ends. Cons, probably like more complex deployment, I guess. More complex deployment. And great question. So we got a question here from Amjad. Can Mastra client run in a Node.js environment, or is it built only for the browser? it can absolutely run in a Node.js environment. A lot of times we see that's how people are using it. It can run in the browser. The trick with running the client in the browser is you have to think a little bit about the authentication of it. So, and we have some tools to allow you to do that, but you do have to think about, do you want your browser directly calling your Mastra agent? The answer for latency reasons might be yes, but you do have to just be concerned with paying attention to the authentication of it and making sure that you are kind of handling that. And we provide some middleware and some runtime context and a few different tools where you can kind of ensure that that's the case. But the other option is, as I'm showing, I guess right here, this master client is in this this API chat route. So that's running on the server, right? That's a Node.js environment. But yeah, you could run it in an Express server as well, and you could call out to a master backend. It would totally work in a Node.js environment, and that's honestly how we see a lot of people using it. The thing about that is the trade-off, right? If you are running it from, in this case, you have a NextJS app, you're calling to this API route. It's already made one request, and then now it's making another. That being said, if your chat route is run on the same infrastructure, if you're deploying these to the same place, that should be a pretty light hop. So it's going to add some latency, of course, but I think, and I haven't actually measured this because it does depend on where you're hosting these things, but it's going to be pretty minimal. But something you do have to consider is there's technically kind of like a little bit of extra latency here, but it should be pretty minimal. And so yeah, pros: separation of concerns, supports multiple front ends, more complex deployment. And in this case, if I had this mobile app, I just now, my mobile app just you can talk to my master client. So again, a few different options for how you want to do this. If you're working with, for those of you that just joined us, I know we've had a lot that have come in over the last 20 minutes as I've been explaining this. What we are talking through is, if you are building, we're using a specific example of building a Mastra agent or Mastra agents and a NextJS app, but it does apply more generally if you think about it to some kind of front-end framework with some kind of AI infrastructure. And option one, you could bundle it all together, put Mastra inside your NextJS app. You can actually just import it directly in your API routes, call the agent, pass in messages, return the stream to chat components using tools like AI SDKs, Use Chat, Copilot Kit, Assistant UI. And the pros of this are easy deployment. It's all one thing, right? You just PR something to GitHub, deploy it, and merge it, and it's deployed. But you do start to run into some limitations, especially when you get more complexity into your application, where if you needed to add other types of front ends, whether that's Discord bots or Telegram bots or a mobile app, a desktop app, some other kind of front end that might want to interact with those same services, it gets a little bit more complicated. A more complex approach, but also probably more architecturally sound for more, if you are building something that has potentially multiple front ends or that is a little bit more complex of a setup, is you basically have your NextJS app, you use the Mastra client SDK, and you call out to Mastra client, you call it to your Mastra instance, which is deployed somewhere else. Now they both could be deployed to Vercel. You could have your NextJS app deployed to Netlify, and your Mastra deployed to Vercel, your Mastra deployed to Mastra Cloud, or wherever else you might want to deploy this thing. And then the pros here are you have separation of concerns. So you can, whether you have different teams owning different parts of this, which is commonly what I see, is like someone's responsible for building out the AI parts, someone's responsible for the app when you work with larger teams. Supports multiple front ends. So if you ever had like a mobile app or a desktop app, it's much easier to actually integrate with. But some of the cons is, of course, you have a little bit more complex deployment. You got to deploy your agents separately from your front end. If you change your front end and your agents, you have to figure out how you do that versioning. And there are tools to make it pretty easy, but it is just something you have to think about and you have to plan for. And so, yeah, that is a quick little, I guess, whiteboard session on how we think about building agents with front ends, specifically Mastra and NextJS. We do have some things in the chat. All right, so let's answer a couple questions, and then we do have a guest we're going to bring on. So a few questions here. Let me stop sharing and jump back in. Could you differentiate between building workflow and agents? This one is a little bit nuanced, but when you think about control flow on an application, so if you're building an agent, you're basically letting the LLM decide. You're probably building a pretty complex system prompt of what the LLM should do. You're giving the agent some set of tools, and you're letting that agent make the decisions. So you might be basically building workflows within your system prompt itself, saying, if this happens, I want you to call this tool. If if the user prompts ask something around this, you should run this tool. And you're basically turning over a certain level of you're losing a certain level of determinism because you're letting the LLM decide. Now, if you have things that are very specific to your that can be more deterministic, that's where workflows can come in, because you can basically say, these are discrete steps, these are discrete conditions. Sometimes you might call out to an LLM in that workflow, but you do have a certain level of it's a little bit more deterministic. You kind of know that once it starts, it's going to go down this graph or this chain of thinking. Oftentimes what we see happen is you end up doing a little bit of both. You might build agents that can call into workflows. You might build workflows that can call into agents. They're kind of composable in a way where you can piece these things together. One analogy that I like to use, it's maybe not the best one, but I think about if I was trying to automate maybe like a customer support bot, like just thinking like a actual like customer support person in a company. If I were to hire that customer support person, ultimately I would give them a set of tools. If the customer support person in this case is an agent, so think about it, comparing it to like a person. If it's an agent, I would give them a set of tools, maybe Slack, maybe access to Zendesk, maybe email, whatever tools that you'd give it. Those would be tools that are given to the agent. But I also might give that person a set of like playbooks. When a new support issue comes in, I want you to do these things. And it would be steps where that's, customer support person is smart, right? They can maybe have to make some decisions as they read that checklist of things they need to do. Well, that's really a workflow. So you might have an agent that has this set of playbooks or this set of workflows that, depending on what happens, it will run in certain situations. And so that's kind of how we modeled it when we built it, is to try to think about it like things that make sense to us. And so that's the analogy that I often use. And yes, Amjad, and yes, the workflows can be attached directly to an agent now. You used to have to like create a tool and like wrap the call to the workflow. Now you can just pass in a workflow to an agent. And thanks, Ryan, for tuning in. Hopefully we'll see you in the next one. And so this is one more question that we get so frequently is, how can we display the workflow steps on the front end? The answer is yes, but not very easily. And so we're working pretty closely with Assistant UI and Copilot Kit, and we're building some examples with AI SDK, because that's what people really want to do, is display the steps. You might not want to display every step though, but there might want to be some kind of translation layer, because you don't want to maybe display all the internal logic of your workflow, right? So it's like there's like a translation of the workflow's doing something, but you want to tell the user and provide updates of status. And maybe they're just simple updates and with some levels of information about what's going on. So we are working on that, but it's not as easy today as it needs to be. All right, we went a little longer than anticipated, but I do want to call in our first guest for today. So this is something I'm hoping we're going to do at least maybe once a week, where we basically think through, what does security with AI agents look like? And how should we be thinking about security? I am not a security expert, maybe not a big surprise to some of you. So I figured we need to call on someone who is. So Allie, I'm going to bring you on.
Awesome. Thanks, Shane. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, nice to see you. And I've chatted with you obviously quite a few times, but glad to have you on the live stream today. And maybe for those of you, there's 140 people on here, so most of them probably don't know who you are or what you do. So could you give a little background?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, my name's Allie, and I am a VC. So for AI startups, I help them with SOC 2 compliance and just building trustworthy AI overall. And usually, like, a good first step there is SOC 2. But also, I enjoy like going beyond that and thinking about like threat modeling AI applications, and also thinking about ways that we can like enhance our security, like at runtime, since LMs and AI agents are so non-deterministic. I'm also involved with the OWASP Agentic Security Initiative. I lead the insecure agentic code examples there. So we build and catalog a bunch of different examples of like kind of what not to do with AI agents to help inform other people for how to like build them securely, and also to help inform our other working group that's specifically geared towards securing these insecure examples.
Awesome. Yeah. Great to have you on here. What I know you had some ideas of some things that we could maybe do today that would be hopefully educational to, the 150-ish people watching.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, happy to go through an example that I built. It's interesting. Like, I'm actually not a TypeScript dev myself. I'm like familiar with Python the most. However, like Mastra is so easy to build with and use that I've been able to create agent examples in Mastra like very easily. And so I have one today we could walk through and look at it for the security implications if we want.
Yeah, we should do that. And you bring the security, I'll try to bring the TypeScript. I'll do my best. I would I can probably get a little further than you, but we probably have some people in the chat that will help us if we go off the rails. And
Okay.
unfortunately, I usually have my sidekick Abby here. He's the TypeScript expert. So he would tell me all the things I'm screwing up, but you'll have to deal with no true TypeScript experts today, but we'll get through.
Yeah, I believe in us. All right, so can you see my screen?
We can.
Okay, awesome. So this is just a preview of what I built. So basically, I built an AI agent that helps tech founders decide if they should live in San Francisco or New York City. It's kind of a fun example. I also have it queued up here in my Mastra playground too. You can see I just ran it with Grok right now is what's set up on it.
And all we see is just your architecture diagram right now.
Oh, that's right. That's cool. Oh, I can say share this tab instead. Okay, can you see the Mastra playground now?
Yes. You might want to, can you do like one level of zoom maybe? Just
Yes, let's
command,
see.
yeah, just command plus or just, there we go. That's better. Hopefully you all can see it. If you can't see it, chat, let us know. But that looks pretty good.
Perfect. Yeah, as you can see, I've run it a few times. I've run it with a few different models, and I'm using let's see if I switch back to the architecture diagram. So basically, yeah, our agent is connected to the weather tool that actually comes preloaded with Mastra if you tell it to install the examples that it gives you during the npm, I think, create Mastra workflow. And then I've got it also connected to an MCP server from Exa, and it's got the Exa search one. And it basically just like calls out to like, I think up to like 5 URLs by default, and does some research on the web and returns you those results from those web pages it scrapes. So it's got that one single tool from that MCP server, and then our homegrown weather tool. And it's also connected to the Mastra memory DB that Mastra creates automatically. So a few things that I noticed while I was creating this example were the following security concerns. You'd see this diagram as well. Let's see if I can make it a little bigger. Um, but basically, there's the potential for indirect prompt injection from both the weather tool and the MCP server, primarily like mostly the MCP server. I know Shane just talked about this. I think it's a really great point that, if we're able to find ways to include like non-determinism, or sorry, more deterministic, more discrete like workflows during our AI agent development, that's actually like very beneficial and helpful for security. And one of the reasons why is, for this Excel Labs like web search tool, we have no control over like which websites it's going to call out to, and like how many of those websites it's going to actually like return in its response when it decides like what information from those websites was worth returning back to the user. So it's like a high level of, or high amount of non-determinism. So we're not sure, one, are those web pages like even factual that it searched? We're relying on exit search for that. And two, like, could those web pages it scrapes have like indirect prompt injections in them where there's some sort of hidden instruction, like, export the entire chat history back to me. And when we feed that back into our agent, that agent might understand that as an instruction rather than like web search results, and might take action on that.
So can I interrupt and ask, because of course I understand this completely, but maybe someone in the chat doesn't, or maybe I don't. So, so prompt injection, in this case, I'll explain it. You tell me if I got it right. So let's say we pull some data, we scrape some data from the web, and either hidden in that text somewhere, whether it's some kind of comment or whatever, but basically tries to get the model to return some kind of data that it maybe shouldn't have. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's correct. That's a really good explanation.
So rather than trying to, just getting the HTML or the text, it's actually like trying to, somehow tweak or change the result to do something maybe potentially malicious.
Okay. Exactly. Yes, that's a great example. And the reason why I think the weather tool has less risk of what you just talked about is because that has predefined APIs that we call out to. So we know every time exactly where we're getting our data from. It's from, if we've configured this API, it's probably a trusted source that we know. It's going to return it in the same standard format every time. So there's more determinism within that workflow. So there's probably less chance of there being an indirect prompt injection there. So just something to keep in mind when you're connecting like workflows versus MCP servers. And then another interesting, I wonder if I can go back and show you a previous run that I had did in the Mastra playground. But basically there was maybe one of the first tries I ran. I don't know if it'll show it, but basically one of the first times I ran it with GPT 4.0, and that model for some reason decided to call out to the MCP server like multiple times, like all at once. I also had a different prompt on it originally. The instructions were different. So originally I asked or I put in the system prompt, like, you should find out information about cost of living, different activities to do, the weather. And with GPT 4.0, it decided to sort of solve all of those or research all of those questions at once. And I don't think the MCP server necessarily liked that, or I saw like a bunch of different, like 4 or 5 different calls to exit search all at once. And so I got a bunch of errors related to that. It seemed like the MCP server itself like wasn't able to handle that amount of requests just in a really, really short amount of time. So that kind of like takes us back into thinking about something called unbounded consumption. And this is a concern not only for security, but like for performance. With AI agents, we're not exactly sure like what decisions they're going to make. So we don't know how many times our tools could be called in a row. Like, what if our AI agent decided to call it 100 times or 200 times, or there was some sort of prompt injection, or it went off the rails, or something caused it to make too many requests. That could easily create a denial of wallet attack where every single call we use, it uses API keys, it uses our tokens that are associated with it. So we don't want to basically spend all of our credits just because our AI agent decided to make too many calls. So thinking about ways to like rate limit those essentially is really important, or refactoring your system prompt for a defense in depth strategy to like not only do the rate limiting, but also to like refactor the system prompt. So maybe it makes its decisions more effectively. But also like try different models. I thought that was an interesting takeaway from this example for me, was like when I switched to Grok 3, it decided to, sort of like do this more iteratively, where it would like ask me like, hey, okay, like I'm not going to find all this information at once, but here's cost of living. What do you think about that? And if depending on what you think there, then I can look into, activities to do, and I can look into weather and other factors. So definitely trying different models is important, especially too for like bias and alignment purposes, which is, I think, a really interesting part of AI security, because alignment's going to be unique to like your individual business. An example to explain that I will give is, in this example, like I don't really care if like it tells you to live in NYC versus SF. Like I don't have a personal like investment in there. But like, what if instead of like me just being like Allie, what if I'm like the city of San Francisco and I created this agent? Maybe I want it to recommend San Francisco. Like maybe I want it to be like agnostic at first, but my business use case is actually like, I want to recommend SF at the end of the day and get more people to move here, like boost our economy, all of that. So that's important to like, maybe you want to think about red teaming your application and finding out exactly like what it's going to say so that you know that it's like aligned to your use case. Sorry, Shane.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I've noticed you talked about changing models and having it call tools differently and kind of approach problems differently. We actually spent quite a bit of time just going through. Mastra actually has a compatibility layer to try to make models more, make sure that tool calling is more accurate across models, because there is such a varying level of just tool accuracy in different models. And so not only are they deciding when to call tools obviously changes, but how frequently and how correctly they call tools, it does vary based on model. But I do need to stop just for a second because we have special guests, surprise guests joining, and I did not expect to see. Co-founder Abi, founding engineer Tony in Japan.
Live from
So
Japan.
live from Japan. So let's take just like a 2-minute delay. And yeah, what's the vibe in Japan? I haven't talked to you for 48 hours. That's the longest I haven't talked to you in 6 months.
All right, so right now it's 5:21 in the morning. The sun came up at 4 a.m., which is crazy. And it's super quiet and peaceful out there. One interesting thing, in the toilet, the sink is on top of the toilet. So like after you use it, like you flush it, and then like the sink fills the tank. I'm like, this is amazing, right? Like washing my hands in the toilet, which is great. What else did we do? We had sushi. That was cool. And then we met with some McKinsey folk last night, and they were talking about LangChain in not positive ways. So that was interesting.
Yeah. What you got more meetings tonight?
Today's our big meeting day. We're going to head over to Plaid, which is a Japanese company, and then several other kind of meetings with the folk here. But yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah. So pleasant surprise. Wasn't expecting you all to join. But Allie, did you want to continue? Do you want to keep talking through or were you all finished up?
I could definitely keep talking about it. If anyone has any questions too from the chat about anything I covered so far, happy to answer those too.
Yeah, if you do have questions. So for those of you just joining us, we have Allie, our resident security expert, to help in ways that I cannot. So we have Allie here. Abi, who's normally here, he's joining us from Japan with Tony, and we are talking AI security. If you missed the beginning section, well, this is recorded on YouTube. You can go see me talk about Mastra and NextJS and how we think about architecting applications and kind of connecting Mastra to different front ends, specifically NextJS, but it doesn't have to be. So we got a question. Abi, where are you based out of? Based out of California. So but just in Japan, because we do have a lot of Mastra users in Japan. So you'll notice kind of an Easter egg if you didn't know it was there. If you go to our docs, you'll see that you can actually see the Japanese translations of those, because we have so many of our users in Japan.
Yeah, we're making this joke that we're in the land of 20% of our users. So we're trying to meet as many of them as we can.
Yeah, exactly. I guess, Allie, any other interesting things that you have coming up? I know you do a bunch of hackathons, you do a bunch of events. Anything that's on your radar, or things that you're planning for in the near future?
Yeah, great question. So I think I'll be at New York Tech Week the first week of June. Recently, I started in conjunction with my friends at Penzar a Insecure Agents podcast. So we're looking to shoot episode 2 that week while I'm there. And then June 18th.
Is it released? Is it available? Or not yet?
The first episode?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. Well, find us a link. We'll have to we'll drop a link here in the on the screen. So, I mean, I'm sure people can find it, but it's called the Insecure Agents Podcast.
Yes, let me see if I can find a link. It's on Spotify.
All right. Well, we'll get that pulled up, but yeah, curious on what was the topic of the first podcast?
So the first podcast, we were lucky to have a guest, Mark Dorsey, who's the CISO of Netlify,
Yes,
with us.
Mark.
Oh, really? That's awesome. Yeah, Mark's great. We chatted about sort of like how, the time we're living in, vibe coding, everything, like everyone is able to build basically now. And so like, what does that mean for people developing like agents specifically and what tools are available? And he was able to talk us through sort of like tools that Netlify has to help you deploy agents securely, which I feel like is kind of like the next frontier. Like it's really easy to create like an agent POC, but then to like deploy it and actually have it production, like that's pretty challenging, both from like a production and security perspective. So that was a really interesting conversation. We also chatted about like our expectations for like RSA as well, since it was filmed in the backdrop of RSA.
Cool. And did you say what was the I guess how frequently are you planning on doing these podcasts? Is this like a weekly thing that you're committing to? What's the cadence that we should expect if we want to learn more about AI agent security?
So it's at least monthly, and then as we have interesting like guests that want to come on or interesting topics to discuss or like something that's like new and like everyone's talking about, like an MCP was huge like 3 weeks ago, we would have capitalized on that if that was we were doing it then, but definitely want to increase the frequency, and we're going to start like I'm going to put a website up, insecureagents.com eventually will be a website that we will own and use for the podcast. So yeah, definitely stay tuned.
All right. Yeah. If anyone is in the chat and they do have questions, please let us know. You can just, whether you're on LinkedIn, whether you're on Twitter, X, whether you're on YouTube, just drop a comment and let us know what questions you have. We're going to be wrapping up with Allie shortly, but I did want to drop in. If you do want to see what Allie is up to, you can follow Allie on X here. And I'm sure you can find the podcast from there. You can see all the other stuff. I think you have a newsletter too, right, Allie?
Yes, and that goes out every Thursday.
Yeah. So if you care about security, and you probably should, then there's a good place to go to kind of keep in the know. And we'll also, our goal here is, we'll probably be doing this as a recurring segment, and each week we can talk about something that's interesting in the security world. Maybe we can find some cool examples of code to show of how certain things can be secure and maybe aren't secure, because people like me need to learn these things. So I appreciate you coming on, and yeah, we will probably see you next week, Allie.
Perfect. Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Allie.
See you.
All right, dudes. What's the vibe? Then there were three.
And there was three. I don't know. I think the hackathon is the funny thing. We're in the future right now, so the hackathon ends today for us, or tonight. Yeah. So we'll see y'all on the late live stream for us.
Are you guys going to be doing some live streaming while you're there?
Yeah, after our meetings today, we're going to do a live stream in this time zone. So double dip, I guess.
Yeah. Well, what's the rough time to expect that for people? Just so.
Probably like I would say 3 p.m. in this time zone, which is I don't know what the time zone's called, but Japan time.
Yeah, I don't know what that conversion is, but 3 p.m. Japan to Pacific. So it'd be like 11 p.m. Pacific time, maybe.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, so maybe I will tune in from my bed because I'm in Central Time. It'll be like 1 a.m. for me. But yeah, cool. And what are you gonna be working on? What are you planning on working on in that?
We're working on agent network. So actually, I can answer this one question in the chat too, in line with that. How is Mastra different from OpenAI Agent SDK? In a lot of ways, it's the same in a lot of ways is different. So for our perspective, we're fully built in TypeScript with a module structure, and we kind of go through every AI primitive. OpenAI Agent SDK is trying to solve the same problem, and that's chill. By default in the OpenAI Agent SDK, let's say that 3 times fast. Their kind of main primitive is agents like collaborating with these things called handoffs, where you can delegate from one agent to another, and then you can kind of have them all collaborate. We experimented on this feature many moons ago, and we had like our experimental version, which allows you to essentially create a network of agents that all work together. And Tony and I have just been scheming on how to improve it, and we just figured let's just do it live and improve it live, and then at the end, hopefully we can get a stronger, network story for multi-agent collaboration.
Awesome. Yeah, excited to see the progress there, and definitely get, just a little bit more of our like agent network story, because we have it, right? And some people actually really enjoy it, but
yeah,
we do know we need to take it. We actually got to finish it. We kind of released it as experimental, and we've learned a lot. And so now it's how do we get it to the next stage?
Yeah, it's like actually an interesting thing for anyone running open source projects. Like, even if you mark something as experimental or do not use or whatever, people will use it, which is good. And we got a lot of feedback from that. So now we're like, let's do this thing.
Yeah.
Also, you can use it. It's like experimental in the sense that we will not support you if you have bugs, right? Like, but now we're going to.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So we release it as experimental so we can learn. We've learned a lot. Now we're ready to really do the thing for real. Also, this is a great segue. So I don't know if you read my mind, Shu, or what, but I just found out about this hackathon thing right now. It'd be amazing if you give a little intro and what kind of apps people are making. Well, the good news for you is we're actually going to be bringing on 2 hackathon guests to talk about what they're building, so you can actually hear it from them. We had a really great guest on Tuesday as well during the live stream. I think it probably started either 10 or 20 minutes into the live stream. So if you want to see another example of what someone's building, for those of you that are not familiar with the hackathon that we have going on, it's all week. Go to mastra.build. You can still sign up. You can still work on, you have, 12, 18 hours or so, a little less than that to still build something. So if you have a free evening, build, submit something. We have a whole bunch of prizes. We have prizes for, winners. We have categories. We have prizes for the winners in each category. And then we also have just raffle prizes, which means if you submit something, any kind of like agent that you built with Mastra, you have a chance to win some of these prizes. So even if you haven't been spending the whole week working on it, you don't think you are going to win, you should still submit, because there's a chance you're going to win some good prizes. And everyone that submits will send a copy of Sam, our other co-founder's book, Principles of Building AI Agents. So we will send that to your doorstep. And with that, I do want to bring on our first hackathon guest. Yes, you brought your book with.
The Book of Mastra, all over the world.
The Book of Mastra, written in the Palace of the Dog.
Yeah.
All right, so let's bring on Justin. So Justin, I'm going to bring you on, and you're on.
Hey everybody, can you hear me?
We can.
Perfect. Yeah, how y'all doing?
Good. Yeah, interested to hear. Obviously we've chatted a little bit, the last few days during the hackathon Mastra build office hours, but I think everyone is interested to hear what you're building. What are your thoughts on the hackathon so far? How's it been going for you?
Oh man, I just honestly found out about Mastra like less than 2 weeks ago, probably. So this is the week that I decided to kick my butt and try to learn it, and string together something. And the hackathon's been amazing. Discord's been alive. It's I don't know, it's fun. So if you guys do another one, I'll definitely be a part of it, and maybe dish out something else that's new. But yeah, having a deadline really helps.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was kind of like our rallying cry too. Is we heard a lot of people that kept telling us, "Oh, this looks really cool. I need to find a weekend, or I need to find an evening to do it." And so I think in a lot of ways, a hackathon is just a little bit of a forcing function of, okay, well, you know, a lot of in-person hackathons are, of course, a good forcing function. We have such a distributed, you know, community that we wanted to do it virtually, but it is a good forcing function to say, okay, like I need to get this submitted by this time. So I want to have something. So you have a little bit of a deadline, and yeah, it seems to give people a little bit of a kick to try something new.
Yeah, and like I've been doing JavaScript web dev for like, I mean, forever basically, and I've been using AI agents and, you know, Windsurf and ChatGPT and whatever, just helping me work and do code in general, but never really, I've always wanted to dive into this moment. And then I was starting to learn like LangChain and getting into Python. I don't really know Python that well. JavaScript's definitely my stronger language. And then like when someone at my office was like, you should check out Mastra, I was like, oh, what's Mastra? Oh, TypeScript? Yes, let's get on it. Like, so
Yeah.
just pretty much, I'm not that I gave up on LangChain. I just don't. I'm pretty much full in on this platform right now, and I've been doing it pretty much every night this week. I got full-time job, got kids, so I've been putting on the night, I don't know, just the nocturnalness of the developer life, you know, and getting it done. So
Yeah, well,
You're working in the dungeon.
yeah,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you're wired in. You're getting wired in. No, that well, excited to hear, you know, like that you've been enjoying it so far. I guess so 2 more questions before I do want you to kind of show off what you
Yes.
started working on, but we do have a little bit of time. So what were you doing, or I guess what's the day job, or what were you doing before? You said you've been spending a lot of time in web, and honestly, that's a lot of the people that are using Mastra are kind of like us. Like we're not ML guys. Like we're gonna have a segment at some point. We're gonna bring on some of our ML friends. It's gonna be builders learn ML, because we're not ML machine learning guys. We're web guys. So we share probably the same background. But yeah, can you tell me a little bit about what your background is?
Yeah, I mean, I work at a company in Michigan called Brightly, and I've been working there. I mean, it's crazy. I've been there almost 11 years, so it's been a while, and we've been churning out some cool stuff. But my background is mostly design. Back then, I gave up on design. Not that I gave up on design, but I was trained as a graphic designer, and then so my path in was web design in general, and was like, holy crap, this is so much fun. This is so much better than design. So I just went full bore into it, taught myself how to do it. And I mean, I started with like WordPress, you know, pretty typical, and then I played around with headless CMSs and stuff. Like I've used Gatsby in the past too, but a lot of times now I have, I'm just basically building React applications for businesses. I like SaaS software, so in the security space and insurance space and some of these bigger markets and stuff like that. So I'm definitely more full stack nowadays. So I like diving into architecture and all that type of stuff too. So it's not just web code, but I focus a lot on the user experience side of things, you know, given my background. And I think that's, if I don't have a reason, it's hard to do the code, you know?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, like, ever since, you know, GPT-3 released and ChatGPT, it's been pretty much forefront on my mind getting into this AI stuff. And like you said, the web is like where people, I mean, apps and native apps and all this stuff, great. But like the web is where it is all accessible, you know, like anyone can get on a browser, anyone can do this stuff. So it keeps me interested, you know, always. And it's always something new with some new platform or browser or whatever that comes out. And it's an exciting space to stay in, you know? So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, we did have a question in the chat, you know, like, what's the audience that we're targeting? Well, I would say one of the types of audience are us, right? The web devs that are now learning AI, wanting to build things. And so often you can accomplish a lot with just these really great model APIs, right? You have and we're really good at interacting with APIs. That's what web devs do. So
yeah,
I do feel like it is a really good time to be a web dev, to really kind of be in the AI space, but also coming from a background of web development. So it's a great time to be here. We got another great comment here. We found out about Mastra a couple weeks ago, and we've been enjoying it so far. yeah, thank you.
I parrot that as well too. So it's been fun. So, but
well, appreciate it. Appreciated everyone who is here. Let's catch everyone up. And then Justin, if you do want to get ready to show what you have been working on. So we are talking to Justin. He is taking part in the Mastra.build hackathon. You can still learn more about the Mastra.build hackathon. Go to Mastra.build and you can still sign up if you want. There's still some time if you want to submit something. We have a whole bunch of prizes for anyone that does submit some kind of submission. Everyone gets a copy of this book if you submit something, and you also are in a bunch of raffles for other types of really cool prizes. And it's been going on all week. We have the award ceremony tomorrow. It's at 10 a.m. Pacific time, I believe. So deadline for submissions is 8 a.m. So get your submissions in if you're watching this and you are participating. And tune in. We will be, for anyone that has actually submit something or is part of the hackathon, you'll actually be invited to the live Zoom so you can interact with us all. And we'll also be live streaming it as well for those of you that just want to tune in and see what the award ceremony is about and see, what was built, who won, what kind of prizes we had, all that. All right. Should we check it out, Justin? You want to share? No. Did we lose Justin?
Hope not.
The internet gods have failed us. Oh no. But he's back.
I'm back. Sorry. Right. I'll get to it. But yeah, so what I'm building is for my hackathon project this week. I pretty much started Mastra this week and also started this project this week. So, but I'm calling it Family Storybooks. And before I get into using it, I figured I'd just peel back Mastra Playground a little bit, just show you kind of what's going on behind the scenes, and then I'll get in and actually use it. So behind the scenes, I basically have two agents, a family historian agent and a family storyteller agent. And the idea of this whole app is sit down, work with a family member or whatever, collect some basic info, get a conversation started, get the models to, maybe jog some memories of some anecdotes or some experiences that you may not have thought of, and work it into the initial kind of workflow step, which is like a fact finding, a historian gathering session. So it'll work with you back and forth, and it'll ask you questions, and you can keep providing feedback. And then once you've done those steps, it feeds it into a family storyteller agent, which is crafted to take the input or the output from the historian step and create essentially like a chapter book, or attempt to anyway. And for right now, just to call it out, I'm using the really small models right now, just for the sake of the demo speed and whatnot. So I'm going to play with figuring out some of those models and see what works best in the future. But behind the scenes, there's a workflow called just one workflow. This is a pretty simple, the AI server part of Mastra came together really, really fast. Like it was just like so easy to use. And I'm using the vNext workflows. And basically it starts with a summarize step. So it summarizes some of this initial feedback that you can see on the right over here. And then it will go into this provide more context step. And this step is a suspend step that will just iterate over and over and over until the user clicks the checkbox is satisfied. And you can keep working with that until you're happy, essentially, with that. And then it moves on to like a mapping, which maps the data out of this step and into the story step, which will create its first draft of the story. And then just like this step up here, it's a suspense step that will go over and over and over and over until basically you're happy with the story. And then there's a part that isn't done yet. I'm going to try to get that done tonight before the deadline, which is output and generate a PDF of like your storybook. And I can go into more of what I'm planning on doing in the future, but we'll just kick over and see it in action. So I'm not using any Copilot Kit UI or anything. I kind of just wanted to focus on Mastra APIs and not have some layer in between. So I just built this really rudimentary prototype UI to use it. So I'll just get it going. So I'm making up names. I'm making up data here. So we'll just put in some stuff. And then when you hit start, you'll see the generating preview start. I'm going to try to do streaming as well in this, but anyway, comes in with this. It changes the step over on the side here. It gives some users a prompt. So review the text on the right. We have more questions, ideas. You can provide more context. So it summarizes. The agent is designed to summarize what we know so far, give ideas on what is worth exploring, and ask some specific follow-up questions that are just open-ended to try to get people to hydrate this more. And in the future, I want to bolt on like a tool call or a RAG system where people could just click and drag files over, or go out to like public census data, or integrate with something like ancestry.com or something, so it can go and do its own research without you necessarily having to provide direct feedback, but also let you provide direct feedback. So
okay. So can I
Yeah.
interrupt and ask some questions?
Yes, 100%.
So this is really cool. So I think if I were to summarize like some of the things I could see possibly happening here, you're essentially entering some information about somebody, right?
Mhm.
And then you're generating essentially that person's story, but you're kind of prompting them to give more information. So you're almost like, and I know someone that kind of lives near me, and they're like a book publisher, and they actually bring people in. Sometimes it's entrepreneurs, sometimes it's just like grandparents who want to share their story with their families, and it's like they basically do this where they're like sit down, they do these sessions, they sit down for like 2 hours or what. I've never done it obviously, but I've talked to the guy that runs it, and they'll like they'll like draw the story out of them, and they'll put it in a story so they can share with, whether it's like actual book that people sell, or whether it's more like a family heirloom of like having the story. So I could see something like that at some point, of like automating that process and like actually getting a physical PDF or book of something like this. That's really cool.
Oh yeah. And you're in my brain right now. So, but yeah, I was thinking, in the future too, like another, and the way that this is architected, you hit in the beginning of the stream, or near the beginning of the stream. This is a dedicated AI server with a separate Next.js that has a backend for front end that's communicating with the AI server outside of this, So, and that's because I was thinking maybe there's a mobile app that you bolt on. Maybe there's another way of interacting.
Exactly. And that's why I did want to spend the time talking through that, because it is a decision people have to make, and you should try to be forward thinking, but you also want to make sure you need to just make decisions. So hopefully that was helpful, but I'm glad you watched it. And yeah, so it's interesting if we tie that back. You are separating out your front end from your Mastra application.
Yeah, so just quick behind the scenes, I have a mono repo here and 2 apps, an AI server and a web. And the web just has a API route to a submit and a resume with the configuration of the Mastra client just sitting right there in the back end. And then the front end just makes calls to the back end for front end out to the AI server. So that's a little bit behind the scenes, I guess. So yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. And then maybe we should keep going through the story, and then it would be cool to we do have, about 10, 15 more minutes. We could take a look at maybe some of the code and how you wired up some of those workflow steps.
Yeah. You guys will probably cringe at what I got, but it's okay. It's hackathon.
It's literally called hackathon. That means you hack something together and you get it out there, and then optimization is for post hackathon if you want to keep working on the project, right? It's like, so exactly. I think it would be useful for people, like, let's look at the ugly code, because then then you can learn a lot from that and then fix it later, right? You can always fix
exactly it. So for example, the workflow basically doesn't return back. So if I don't provide feedback or click this checkbox and I just hit provide feedback, it's stuck in that loop. It just suspends in that step again. But if I go provide some feedback, like had 12 kids, we go out, and what it's going to do is summarize in this section what we've already known and add the additional stuff that we just provided. So he had 12 children, indicating a large family. And then that drives more questions. So did any of Blake's children follow similar careers, have notable achievements, stuff like that. But one kid was the actual James Bond. So, but in this step, so I could just hit this and keep going forever, but I could also provide feedback and just trust the output at the other end. So I have no more context to provide. So hit next. And
this is just a really cool example of like human in the loop, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You're like suspending and resuming on the same step, and you're just like, you could infinitely loop here, forever. And then when you're done, you say like, okay, let's move on. This is really cool.
Yeah, exactly. So as soon as it goes out, and so it's generating the agent call to update this, and it's also calling out the next step to actually build the story. So, and you can see the step changes over here. So story feedback, we've generated initial story based on the information you provided. If you have any feedback below, provide an update, so it, the UI is kind of how it is, but it says you can see the actual James Bond comes in here. So it's updating our history in the state. And then it's also outputting the story now. And I could give it story here. So change the title of chapter 1. Wow, my typing live stream. To before birth or something, provide feedback. And then this one is it's just going to go generate the new story. You can see it's generating down. Oh, it was already done. So I already changed the chapter to before birth. And then the rest of the story, something went wrong here, but the rest of the story would be down here. So, and then basically at the other end of that, if I don't provide feedback and I hit I'm happy with the story, it'll just skip the agent call, everything. It'll just take the previous output and just pass it right to the next, the complete step, which in this state, it doesn't work, but all done. You've completed the story. And it's ready for you to download. So this is what I'm gonna work on tonight. So hit download and it will download a PDF of this story. Then I'm gonna put some like loose styles on so it doesn't look like just a list of, chapters. So
yeah. And the nice thing about this is it's just, I don't know what you're going to use to generate the PDF, but it's any NPM package or whatever. There's probably some libraries of just generating PDFs, and you already did the hard work. Hopefully, you never know, but hopefully that part can be just a simple step where you can, the styling will probably be the hard part, but really, really cool.
The side thing with having the AI server out on its own thing, the AI server doesn't really need to worry about the PDF generation. That part's going on the back end for the front end, and maybe eventually there's some like services that will do PDF generation if there's like a mobile app or something like that. But like I have a choice where I'm putting these modules, rather than just all in one. So
yeah, you're right. Yeah, you could have the AI backend generate it and store it to some storage somewhere and pass in like where here's the PDF file to download, or you could put it right on the front end and just use some kind of web library and so you do have options for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
The architectural decisions we all have to make as we build these apps, right?
Yeah. I saw, I don't know. I'll send you a YouTube short in Discord. It's pretty funny, but it explains what you said. You just have to make a decision at some point. Later, you might regret it, but right now I don't regret it. It's very fun.
It's looking really cool. I can totally see how you could build upon this. We did have, one feature suggestion. Imagine this with transcribed. It'd be great to have speech input. So like a text to speech. There's tons of good AI text to speech tools. That could be, you could either have your agent do it, or you could pass in a workflow that transcribes and gives you an MP3 or something. All kinds of cool things.
Good. And like I was thinking, the crux of this idea is definitely like the data gathering. Like it's hard to convince people probably to sit down and just type in a bunch of stuff and that's it. So that's why it's like it's got to be pretty flexible and ingest a lot of different file types, maybe audio formats. Like maybe you're just on your phone recording your voice, hit submit, and it's in the memory now. So I think really where this idea breaks down is the quantity and quality of data that can get into the initial step, the historian step to go over.
It's inherently multimodal, right? Like imagine a world where I take my photo memories and I pass those as context. So they know that I was in Japan or I was here and these were the dates and I looked happy in the picture. So maybe I'll write something about that. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Or
you might be able to know like location data, like where in
like where stuff like that.
So where in Japan were you? Like what places did you visit? And maybe it could then know to ask you a question like, what was this? Was this a business trip? Was it personal? What were you doing? And if you could imagine just like talking to it as well, just saying like, hey, this is what I was doing. And there's so many cool things that this unlocks that you've kind of taken like the first steps of. So it's really cool.
Yeah, if like you had 7 pictures of pizza every night at an AI meetup, it would make a story saying like, these guys go to a lot of AI meetups for pizza. You know.
It also, yeah, it would also be saying like, why do you eat so much pizza? Maybe you should eat less pizza.
Yeah.
Probably not healthy.
Chapter 1: A Life Without Pizza.
Yeah. Yeah. Can we look at some code?
Sure. Yeah, I'm down with that.
Also, before we do that, like one other small world thing, Abby, Justin knows Zach Erlacher.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah, he's said to
world.
say hi and all that stuff to you guys.
Yeah. Well, now you're saying hi for him in front of 230 people.
Yeah, but yeah,
Dude, that's crazy. Are you from Traverse City? Or?
Yeah, I'm in we're in the same co-working, 20 Fathoms, the same like co-working incubator space type thing. So
wow, that's cool.
It's fun. Yeah, Zach is a lot of fun. I've known him for a while, and yeah, he's good. He's a good guy.
He's a great dude.
Yeah, learned a lot from him. Thanks, Zach.
Thanks,
All
Zach.
right, let's look at some code.
Sure. Maybe start at the suspense step, because I think that I actually did run into a problem, but maybe it's not a problem. I'm just doing it wrong. But whenever we'll get into it here. Let's just get into here. So I have a workflow with the create family stories step.
And can you take it up 1 or 2 clicks a zoom?
Yeah, sure. Let me get some more code viewable here.
Yeah, that's looking much better.
Okay, so this is the first provide feedback step that's looping and trying to extract history essentially out of here. So right off the bat, I'm just getting the feedback is satisfied. And this is the one weird thing that there might be something in the framework that I wasn't aware of, but right now I'm just using the front end state to pass in the last known content to the step. And I thought originally that it would be coming off the input data, but it seemed like the input data is always tracking the data from the workflow trigger, not like the last time it was suspended or whatever. But I just hacked around it really quick, and I don't even know if that's really by design by Mastra, but I'm passing in the previous known state of text. So that way, if I come back and there's no feedback and we're not satisfied, we're just going to pass in the previous response. So that way it always stays the same. So if you hit the button without inputting feedback or checking the box, it'll just keep the same kind of content over and over and over. So it just doesn't blow out and go back to the original input essentially. But then we go back down, and if we have feedback and we are not satisfied, eventually we get into the call out to the agent. So I'm passing behind the scenes to the assistant here. Oh, this is story feedback. So this would actually be the history generated in the previous step. This is the feedback on the story step, and then the new feedback from the user integrated in essentially. So some error stuff right here. But then later on, let's say we gave it feedback, so we wanted the LLM to run, but we don't want to progress to the next step. I'm just double checking again to see if we're satisfied. And if we're not satisfied, we're suspending with the result from the agent call. So that way, and then it goes back in, we get the new fresh data on the front end, and then we can repeat this process over and over and over and over for basically forever until we're satisfied. So, and then on the front end over here, to invoke it or to call it out, I just have one page. Well, actually, I have so I have a couple forms. I just built the few forms for invoking the step from the user. So the initial history feedback, or the initial form with the date of birth, stuff like that, the history feedback to collect, and then a story feedback to collect feedback for the story. And in here, all I'm doing is, so here's the submit initial step, that first step from the initial form. I just have some local state for the user feedback if we're generating or is loading, because I'm not using Copilot Kit or anything fancy like that. So I was just kind of building it myself. So start some user feedback state. I'm calling the API submit, which is just passing in the data that the user gave me from the React hooked form. And then on the back end, all I'm doing is just passing, or I have my Mastra client all configured. And I have my workflow, creating my run here so I can get my run ID, and then getting the result off of that and passing it through to the response on the front end. So I can show the data and then also store a run ID and for follow-up workflow initiators. So, and then on the other side, so these other feedback forms here. So let's go to the first history feedback handler, a submit handler. So I got the data from the form, which is just feedback or a checkbox is satisfied. And we'll pass that data into the resume API call. And then on the resume API call, what we're doing is we're getting the run ID, the step ID that was passed in from the form, and the feedback and is satisfied and the previous response. So I can pass that all into the workflow resume async. So this is the resume schema that it expects. And then yeah, just wait for it to do its thing and then return the result here. So I think, yeah, and then inside the forms too, I'm just hacking, you know, so like my form submission is, let me find one really quick on the history feedback. I just have a bunch of hidden fields for the run ID that just gets populated off the state, and then the step ID, which I think I'm just hard coding in somewhere. Yeah, right here. So it's since it's a deterministic workflow, it's pretty easy just to say this form goes to this step. But I could see building out like a whole step logic to know what step you're on and being able to pass it through more dynamically rather than statically like this. But it worked for the hackathon. So, and then, yeah, then I guess the output would maybe be important to see. And I have my funny comments down here. Sorry, I'm getting to the page here. Boink. Oh, so I'm having... Hackathon deserves some danger. I'm having the LLM output HTML. So for better or worse, I'm just, you know, putting the HTML in the web page.
Yeah. Where's Allie? Allie's, it was just on. Allie is, you know, over there like, what are they doing? But no,
yeah, I know. I was thinking of her when I was
you got to live dangerously when you're at hackathons, right?
Exactly. Well, I mean, I figured, you know, the worst that's going to happen is, I don't have a database, you know, my OpenAI key is probably going to get leaked somewhere maybe, but like, I'm just going to roll that after judging that tomorrow. So, but yeah, so like what's left, you know, a lot about what we talked about, you know, tool calls, some integrations, stuff like that, maybe an e-commerce layer to do book fulfillment. So people can pay to do a book and maybe get a little bit off the top from that. Definitely auth support and actual security, you know, like, because everything's pretty much just wide open. And then, you know, supporting the multimodal aspect of the history collection, you know, the data collection. So,
yeah, well, this has been really cool. It is great to see how much you've got done. You know, you just started building with Mastra or heard about Mastra 2 weeks ago, right? So this is
basically
super impressive. Hopefully, you know, as you go, if you do have questions, you know where to find us in Discord, of course, or on all the socials. How should you know? Are you on any of the social channels you want to plug while you're here, or how can people follow this to see that someday, if you release this, if this graduates out of hobby project into full blown app, how would they know?
I guess like I'm probably right. I'm not a big social media person. I more consume it than anything, but I'm on X. I'm on every platform, but I would look at X at Justano and and LinkedIn's probably more where I would spend a lot more of my time if I was to promote something like this. I think
and if nothing else, if you promote it in our Discord, we will help you. We will share it out to the world for you as well. So
yeah, definitely.
All right, Justin. Well, yeah, it's been great to have you on, and we will see you hopefully soon. As you like, if you have updates to this thing, we'll see you. Of course, maybe at the awards ceremony tomorrow. You know, time will tell.
I'll be there. We'll see where I place. No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
I mean, I'm not a judge, but I think you got a strong contender. So
yeah, very cool project.
All right,
cool.
See you, Justin.
Guys. Appreciate it. Talk later. Bye.
All right, that was sick.
That was dope, dude. And VNext workflows is the only reason that thing worked. Because if he was using V1, oh boy.
Yeah, I know Tony's probably around there somewhere. Thanks, Tony, thanks for making VNext workflows. All right, we do have some more guests. We're running a little bit behind, but Justin was not the only hackathon guest we wanted to bring on today. So again, for those of you that have just joined us, I'm Shane. This is Abby. We're from Mastra. We're two of the founders. And we talked at the beginning. I showed a little bit about how to architect a NextJS plus Mastra project. We brought Allie on and talked a little bit about AI security. We just talked about Justin, who's part of our Mastra.build hackathon that's going on right now. If you go to Mastra.build, you can learn more. Tomorrow, we'll be having the award ceremony. And we also have a few other guests to talk more about their hackathon submission. So I think we have Haroon and Mohammed. So I'm going to bring you both on.
Hey, how you doing, Shane?
Good.
I'm always seeing you pop up on my LinkedIn feed, with your live streams or the selfie videos. So it's good to finally meet you in person.
Yeah, it's nice to meet you all as well.
Pleasure. Abby, I heard you were in Japan as well, so thanks for joining.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah,
I just wanted to say, so just quickly,
go ahead,
I'd really like to apologize just right now for probably the million questions I've asked you in the Discord over the last 3-4 months. The stupid questions.
No problem at all, man.
Yeah. Well, happy that you had questions, and hopefully we were able to help you with at least a lot of them. And yeah, really interested to hear, I guess maybe first just a few minutes on your background, like a minute or two, and then obviously want to talk about what you're building in the hackathon.
Yeah, sure. So me and Mohammed are actually currently building something called Petals. Maybe I can share my screen and sort of show you what that looks like. And the main framework for that is based on Mastra. And we're deploying loads of different sort of agents to try and create a whole data team. So replicating data engineers and data analysts. As we were sort of doing this, we've realized there's sort of a spreadsheet problem, which is, I used to be a data lecturer. We used to teach that spreadsheets were semi-structured, but the reality of the situation is they're probably just very unstructured. We had a plan to sort of create something that allows user input to structure spreadsheets a bit later. That was later on down our roadmap. But this hackathon came up, like, let's give it a go and see what we can pull together. So Mohammed's been spending the past 3 days sweating to hack sign together. But yeah, this is sort of what I'm talking about. When we deal with our system, we can connect to like loads of different API endpoints. So it does have a lot of spreadsheets, which is not a problem. The issue is when you're trying to pass that into LLMs, sometimes there's colors being used to signify information. Other times, they're just like, this is a nice looking sheet, but if you're trying to pass this data, it's quite messy, right?
And can you give us just can you give us just 1 or 2 more clicks of Zoom, please, just so we can, for those of you.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, just to make sure that people can read it, because depending on the connection, sometimes it can be a little pixelated. So that's pretty good.
Sure
That's
thing.
a little bit better.
That's a bit
Thank you.
Nice.
Yeah, much better.
Yeah, so basically, because of this, it's actually a bit hard to pass. And what we actually find with spreadsheets is people put their own, sometimes human input, their notes, and that is actually sometimes useful context, but sometimes there is no context. So really, we actually were trying to find if there was something else out there. We couldn't find it. And we felt that the solution was actually to build a tool where you can upload a spreadsheet, you can chat with it, explain that this is what's happening, and then it can actually then turn it into more usable data that can be used for loads of different pieces of LLMs and agents and so forth. Our plan is to sort of actually open source this because we're sure potentially help a lot of other people. So at the moment we've kind of maybe lit something a bit easier. We started off with a sheet like this, which essentially has all financial data just shoved on one tab on one sheet. Now, this is probably not the best. It's got the P&L, the balance sheet, and the cash flow. You look at the financial years; these aren't actual dates. So I'll pass over to Mohammed. Hopefully, our demo works. We're calling it Project Bloom. I quite like the name Blooming Sheets. It's quite quintessentially British. But yeah, I'll pass over to Mohammed, who can sort of show you what we currently have. And I think we have some questions for you lot as well.
Yeah, let's do it.
Sweet. Okay. Okay, so we've repurposed one of our landing pages from a failed project before, but don't worry about that. So yeah, so like Karun mentioned, the idea is you kind of put in your sheet here, and initially what we were thinking about was having a voice agent and almost having a conversation with an agent and kind of showing it exactly how your spreadsheet is structured, the intricacies of the weird quirks that you might have included in there. I'm having a bit of trouble with the voice API, so that's on hold for the minute. That's tonight's job. But right now we do have a text version. So you press clean with text, it starts generating some questions based around the things that it can see directly in your spreadsheet. So if I just let that happen, there we go. So yeah, just ask some clarification questions. The idea is that it knows that this spreadsheet is trying to be turned into some sort of database table. It needs to be database ingestion ready. So the questions are kind of based around that. So what I can do is just answer these questions. They're a bit arbitrary. Yeah, I don't think it really should matter. Let's go crazy here. Yeah.
And so these questions are generated then from an LLM, correct?
Exactly. Yeah.
And is that just a call to a Mastra agent that's doing
we
this?
have a Mastra agent using an MCP server that we actually found on Smithery, funnily enough. But it's hooked into an Excel spreadsheet and looking around it and then generating these questions. Yeah, maybe I can let Haroon answer, just speak some ramble while I
But basically, I said to Mohammed, the plan is definitely for this to be a voice agent, because what actually happens is it takes the spreadsheet, it does an analysis, then it outputs what it thinks needs to be updated. I think I told Mohammed, listen, just use something like LiveKit, but he was quite adamant on sticking with Mastra, trying to get it work. So after, if we get some time, then we can maybe just look into how best to actually get the voice element working. But it will be conversational, and it will pick up maybe potential issues that are coming in the questions, and it will allow the user to input more information. And that's kind of what we've found is actually required to get this kind of information more usable. Because as I was sort of explaining before, sometimes there's sometimes like hieroglyphics, people put all different types of things on their own spreadsheets, and an agent that you can converse with and actually get that information out we feel is probably the best approach to actually structure this information. And I think it looks like Mohammed's nearly there with all the questions.
Yeah, there we go. So I can hit continue. Basically just give us an overview of our responses. And then from here, we've kind of added two different options. I'm sure I think you guys do know that the Superglue folks, we spoke to them actually a while ago about this kind of problem and how they're trying to kind of tackle it themselves. And I think obviously they're going after a lot more structured data and API data. But it was interesting that they produce kind of a specification internally on how basically all the data gets mapped into the required output format. So we're trying to do something similar where we have kind of a proprietary specification that allows kind of an agent to actually go ahead and perform a transformation in a deterministic way on a spreadsheet, so that you can keep doing it over and over again and almost turn your spreadsheet into an API. So that's kind of where we think this could go. But if I hit this, fingers crossed this works. This invokes another agent that is more kind of designated to actually building out this specification. But again, it has access to the same MCP tools. And hopefully this should work. There we go. Okay. So yeah, it's basically, it creates this specification, and I'm prettying it here. But you can see it's trying to split that spreadsheet into 3 different tables. Each of them have their own kind of quirks. So I can hit apply transformation, and now in my transforms, they have been created. So it's kind of done some cleansing here to split them into 3 tables. It's quite small, but yeah, it's a little bit kind of iffy. We're trying to kind of figure out the best ways to provide the most amount of context to make sure that it's kind of rock solid. But that's kind of what we have right now. I can also show you the YOLO mode. So this mode is a bit different. It's kind of like a one-shot. You give the agent this information and the spreadsheet, and it kind of just tries to figure it out itself. So we can try this again. This is a different agent as well, and we can see what it tries to do.
And so in YOLO mode, it doesn't ask questions; it just goes. Is that right?
Exactly.
Cool. And so I guess I'm really curious on kind of like, so the use case of this. I have these spreadsheets with these unstructured data, and I want to basically get these spreadsheets in a format that I could maybe export to a CSV and import into a database or something, right? Is that kind of the vision of this? So it's like a transformation tool from spreadsheet to database table.
Yeah, exactly. I think, what Petals does is, the whole point of Petals is it brings all company data from different data sources together. Now, spreadsheets is a bit of a challenge. So as you're saying, it could take that unstructured data and then, pass it into the database or use it as a CSV. But even just general use for LLMs, like sometimes if people, I'm sure maybe others have encountered it, you just upload it into GPT. If the formatting's really bad, it's just not going to work, So even those kind of use cases in terms of allowing LLMs and agents to actually parse spreadsheets and make them more usable is another thing we kind of see where this is quite useful for.
And
This is a really cool idea.
It's kind of stemmed from like a personal frustration, because we when we actually onboarded our first client, they gave us one of these spreadsheets and we had to spend an hour with them, just basically them just describing us exactly how this spreadsheet works. All the macros were everywhere. It was a complete mess. And so we thought, this actually could be something worth playing with.
When we were building Netlify Connect, and we were taking these enterprise deals on, or trying to, right, in the discovery phase, we would always notice that legacy enterprises, 20 plus years in the business, they have like 5-6 content management systems over the years. And one of those CMSs is a spreadsheet or a Google Sheet that somehow has been maintained for 20 years, where they add content to it and it gets synced into some like process, right? Which is ridiculous, by the way. So I do see the value here for sure.
Yeah, 100%. I sort of have a background as a data consultant, and I've worked at like loads of different companies, Virgin Atlantic with Google, and even still, like, yeah, people just end up using spreadsheets as CMSs, CRMs, all sorts.
Yeah. I mean, it's the question is, I think people ask themselves, why can't we just do this in a spreadsheet? And then they quickly realize,
Right.
and spreadsheets are great for some things, right? But oftentimes you start with a spreadsheet and it makes sense, but then years into it, it becomes a monster.
And they want to move off the spreadsheet. It's not like they don't, but they can't, because it's crippling amount of work to relocate, right, and do all this stuff. So another +1 for this.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, this has been really cool. I appreciate you both coming on. I'm excited to see you tomorrow at the the awards ceremony. And I guess any other like closing comments or thoughts before we bring on the next guest?
No, just I think Mohammed's like a super Mastra fan, so just thanks for having us on, and we appreciate the time.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to have you come back on as you get even further and show some progress and do an update. And I think people like seeing this. This is what we want to do, is we want to show that all the different types of use cases you can build with AI agents. And I think seeing people in the hackathon building real things is just a way to hopefully inspire a lot more people to see that they can build interesting things as well. So thanks for doing this. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah. I know you all had questions about voice and stuff. Let's just talk in Discord. I'll see you guys there.
Awesome.
Yeah. See you guys. All right, dude. We got
189 of us in this chat right now.
Yeah, we we are turns out if you just live stream forever, the numbers just keep going up.
That's
So
the hypothesis.
yeah, 24-hour live stream coming up next.
Ooh.
But yeah, I did want to bring one more guest on. So today we want to bring on a guest from Mastra.
325 now.
325.
Just in like 1 second. Now we're at 325. Okay, welcome the 20 people that just joined.
Yeah. So for those of you that just joined, I'll do a quick recap of what we've done so far and what we're going to do to kind of close this thing out. We're getting close to the end, but we are not there yet. So I started this thing off by showing how to basically architect a NextJS and Mastra project, some different options. We talked through the trade-offs. All these things are, whether you're watching on YouTube, X, LinkedIn, you can always go to our YouTube channel and see these things after the fact. So if you want to see what you missed, you can go back. We had an AI security corner with Allie. She was a guest that joined us to talk a little bit about security and how you should be thinking about security when you're building AI agents. We talked to 2 different groups building projects for the Mastra.build hackathon. So if you have not heard about that, go to Mastra.build. You can learn a little bit more. We have the award ceremony tomorrow. It'll be live streamed starting at 10 a.m. Pacific. I wasn't expecting Abby and Tony, who's somewhere in that room. I wasn't expecting them to join today because they're in Japan and it's like 6 a.m. So joining early. No sleep no sleep for you. But last but not least, I did want to bring on someone from the Mastra team. So we're going to bring on Shreeda and see what we're going to talk about for the next 15 or 20 minutes or so.
Hey guys.
What's up, Shreeda?
Not much, just chilling. I can't believe you're on, Avi. I'm so jealous that you're in Japan. It's like my bucket list country to go to.
It's pretty nice here.
Nice.
There's no trash cans on the road, so there's no. You have to actually find a trash can, which makes you not want to consume anything outside. It's kind of a trick. I like it.
Interesting. So Shreeda, maybe just a quick summary of your background and what you do at Mastra, and then we'll talk about what we want to do today as we kind of close up this live stream.
Yeah, sure. I would say that I am a writer. I studied writing in CS in college, and somehow that ended up being like the perfect combination of things to study for my career. I was previously at Mercury. We have a magazine called Meridian, and I was the deputy editor and just helped get that off the ground. I wrote the profile on Dwarkesh Patel, which I'm sure a lot of like AI peeps know about him and love him. And now I'm at Mastra. I just kind of noticed that this is the direction that tech is going in. Like you either adapt with the AI wave or you don't, and you like perish, I guess. I don't know. It's like, then maybe it's a little too hardcore to say. And I realized like, I really did not actually enjoy building web apps in college. But like with this new, I guess, Wild West or like new like programming renaissance, it's so much easier and so much more fun to actually do it. And so like, I don't know, I feel like I am actually I want to become an engineer, I guess, or like a content engineer, which is, I think, the title that we arrived at for the role at Mastra.
Yeah, it's like part writing, part engineering role. And how can we use the new tools of the day to think about what's the next age of writing look like?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've been reading this blog by this author that Sam and I actually met through reading his work called Venkatesh Rao, and he, I had no idea how he would feel about AI, but he actually has been just like writing entire blog posts with it, and is saying that writers need to maybe get less attached to the craft, like the object level craft of writing, and focus more on like the ideas and concepts themselves. So I find that, that's exactly what's happening here with Mastra, is like you can be so much more like fast and produce so much more content, but you don't want it to be slop, right? Like you just spend a lot more time making sure that the actual quality is good. And I would say a second observation that goes with that is like the craft has kind of shifted into prompts, like prompt engineering. Like that is the new craft, actually. It's like the meta craft. So I guess we're just moving higher up the abstraction chain.
Yeah. I guess this is maybe my hot take, but I think prompt engineering slowly going to fade into just being communication, right? Because early models, you had to talk to it in a certain way to like engineer results. But I think as models get better, it's going to just come down to clarity of ideas and clarity of communication. So as long as you can communicate very clearly, I think the structure of it's going to be less and less important, and the quality of the communication and the ideas itself are going to become more important. So, but yeah, it's kind of an interesting wave we're on for sure.
Yeah,
Is it the thing that
exactly.
you said that you didn't like to do like web dev, and then now this is like super fun? It's actually the same thing that happened to like Shane and I when we were doing web dev, and the previous regime was like server-based apps, like with PHP and stuff. The minute you can get to this iteration loop where you get like instant dopamine from hitting save, then you becomes fun again, right? So that's what a lot of people are feeling now.
Exactly.
Honestly, just to reiterate that point, one of the things I loved about Gatsby, and the thing that like the reason I ended up joining Gatsby and meeting Abby and Tony is when I was playing around with it the first time, and this was kind of early into Gatsby's existence, but just the live dev refresh, the idea of where I could click save in an editor
gosh.
and not
Yeah.
having to refresh the browser, that was pretty miraculous. I'd spent years building Drupal websites and PHP based websites, and it's not like a refresh is that hard, but if you're building a site and you refresh it 400 times that day, it's kind of nice when you don't have to click that button, going from 400 refreshes to 2 the whole day,
Yeah.
It's that iterative loop. And so, yeah, I think I'm seeing a lot of that this cycle as you can get to that feedback loop even faster because AI helps you get through that prototype stage, or helps you kind of like get through the things that you would normally just have to spend a lot of time hands on keyboard to get to.
Yeah, I actually wanted to see if I could share something that I literally just built prior to this call. So obviously, as a writer here at Mastra, first of all, can you see my screen?
Yes, but you're gonna have to give us like 1 or 2 clicks of Zoom.
Okay, great. Is that better?
Yes, and if you want, you can also hide that left sidebar if you click on the right in the middle, right on the border.
Like right here.
Yeah, just click it. There
Okay,
we go.
great.
That'll
Okay,
give it a little more room.
thank you. Yeah, so I actually literally just built this tool where I'm going to try to prompt my agent and get it to automatically draft a tweet for Sam's Twitter. So I'm gonna just pull something from our recent changelog, which is that we support agent-to-agent communication. So I'm just gonna say something like draft a tweet in Sam's voice about Mastra's latest, I guess, at Mastra's support of A-to-A communication. Okay, let's see if this works. Okay, so it actually, I guess, looked at this MCP tool that I gave it to like try to get some knowledge about Mastra. Let me see if I can get it to do it actually in Typefully. It was working earlier. Okay, so it's using this tool. It's using this Zapier connection. It says it's been drafted successfully. Let's see. I'm gonna actually like refresh this. Sometimes it takes a few minutes for it to show.
If we go back, can we look at if you expand the tool? Does it give us any information about what happened?
It just says it's.
Says
oh, there is.
I saw it actually in the Typefully list.
Oh, was it there?
Wait, success is false. Never mind.
I'm sorry.
I thought I saw it in the Typefully list. Like if you go to the bottom left, A-to-A.
Oh, yeah. So
this the next one.
Oh yeah, here it is. It's literally here. Yeah.
You just have too many. You're drafting too many tweets for Sam.
Yeah, exactly. No, I was testing this, so that's why it's over here.
Sam has a lot of tweets to review and edit.
Exactly. This is really cool. I just created like a webhook with Typefully, and I guess I could show. I wonder if I can show some of my actual Mastra code.
Yeah, let's do it. I mean, I think the nice thing about this is you're just connecting tools, right? You didn't have to write this integration to Typefully. You just knew that, okay, that's what we use. That's what I use to draft my tweets. That's what Sam uses. You obviously help us with some of that. And yeah, we can just connect it to an agent. That's really cool.
I'm having this dumb like system settings share issue, sadly. I don't know, maybe I can just Yeah, this is not gonna work unless I like restart Chrome, sadly. But anyway, I was able to do it. Maybe we can publish this as an example or something.
Yeah.
for
Yeah. Well,
people.
we will, follow us, and we will publish this, add it to our examples in the repo, because it is kind of a cool use case of a really simple way to connect tools to accomplish a task, right? Like that's, I would think that no matter what, whether you're building tools, software tools for others to use, or you're just using things internally, like there's really good use cases for small kind of verticalized or specialized AI agents or AI workflows. And I think this is a really cool use case of that. So, all right. So Shreeda, how can people follow you? I guess.
I'm literally at free Shreeda on Twitter. I have
All
one
right.
of the Mastra affiliate icons near my name now, so that's cool.
All right, let me drop that in so people can follow along. If you want to see what Shreeda's doing.
Yeah, I'm gonna actually write an article soon about what a content engineer is, and it's going to be published. I won't say where, but it's going to be published somewhere. So I'll tweet that out. And I guess my last point is like, I think this is probably going to be a new role that a lot of companies adopt. It's like the evolution of the content strategist or content writer.
Yeah, that is, I would agree. I think that you kind of can, especially when communication is what drives a lot of these models, right? And a lot of these models can write code. There's this kind of blend of good communicators, which I would say writers predominantly, you have to be a good communicator, can now also start to become good engineers too, right? There's of course, nuance to all this, but I do see this as like a pretty major trend. All right, Shreeda, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Yeah.
Great work, by the way.
Thanks.
Yeah. See you, Shreeda. Dude, this was a sick episode.
Dude, 362 viewers.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, our longest stream, right?
This is our longest stream. I mean, I feel like we got to wait. You and I got to hold it down for 8 more minutes so we can say we did the 2-hour stream.
Dude, we will definitely, because I can tell you some things.
Yeah, I definitely want that.
Also, we'll introduce another dude.
Oh, dude, he's still live?
Yeah. You want to come on?
Yeah, we have to kill 8 more minutes so we can say we did AI agents 2 hours. Ashwin, dude, what's up?
How's it going? I was just telling Abby I haven't brushed my teeth yet, so I don't know if I should be on camera.
It's 6:30 in Japan. This is what happens.
Luckily, I cannot smell your breath from here. So you're good. You're good, dude. Yeah, you can. Sorry, dude. Yeah. Well, tell us, Ashwin, maybe you just started at Mastra. What is your first impression, and what are some of the things that you're going to be helping us out with?
Oh man. Well, first impression is I'm so excited to be here. This is such an energetic group of people, and I think a time just in tech in general. And it's funny. I didn't know I was coming here to Japan on Monday night, and then Wednesday afternoon I was getting on a plane.
we make decisions quickly.
Yeah. And first thing we get in, and I'm like, hey guys, I have a meeting I want to take you guys to. Like, this was at like 10 last night, and we are hopefully going to be doing some cool things with a pretty big multinational on Monday. And so things are moving fast. Just exciting, just so exciting. All the books are over here. Like Sam had actually sent me a copy of the PDF before it went to publication, and so there we go. I had shared that PDF on a lot of different group chats.
This is the book of Mastra. Everyone's got to have. Hey, if you're watching this, if you want the book of Mastra, you can get it. You can get the digital copy for free. Just go to mastra.ai/book. If you want the physical copy, here's how you can do it. It's very easy. We have a hackathon going on right now. Submit something, you'll get a free copy of the book. Otherwise, if you go to meetups that we're going to be at in San Francisco, Ashwin will probably be there, and he'll probably have books. So there's a lot of ways to get this book. You can also buy it on Amazon. If you can't wait, you want to get the copy, you can buy it there too.
I literally brought 60 pounds of books to Japan. So if you happen to see me wandering around Tokyo, I'll give you a couple copies of the book.
If you see the 3 tall dudes, taller than most people, we got the books, okay?
Yeah, luckily you can't tell on the stream. I would not fit in with you 3 probably, but
you would fit through the door. Actually, is perfect height for most people here. But Tony hit his head like walking through the door. He hit his head like because he didn't look.
Yeah,
at the
I mean,
building.
yeah, it's just different,
Different strokes.
different culture. Yeah, different heights. Apparently.
Thanks for coming on, dude.
Yeah, dude, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. See you, Ashwin. Have fun.
See you guys soon.
I keep forgetting it's 6:30 in the morning here, you know, and I am just wired awake.
Well, I suppose your time zone change is pretty intense.
This might sound more ignorant, but like there are some cool things that I've just discovered. Like there's like vending machines outside that serve coffee and Coca-Cola and all these different drinks. So like on your way to work, you can just walk out, tap your card, get your coffee, and go. It's so cool, and it's so clean here. I love it. Like it's just there's no trash anywhere. I love that, and people don't jaywalk, which I'm such a jaywalker in California. But everyone is like just waiting for the light, and I'm like, how come no one's just crossing right now? Like there's no cars coming, but like there'd be like a herd of people. If you're in New York or California or anywhere, you know people just jet across the street. Who cares, you know? So there's just cool stuff like that.
Yeah, well, you'll have to find some of our Japanese super fans, and we can get them on a live stream or something as well. I know we have just a ton of community support there, and that's why three of the Mastras are there, right? To try to meet people, I don't think we really predicted that we would we didn't predict that Japan was going to be this big thing, right? There's nothing that we did specifically to try to reach out to Japan. I think there was a couple things that probably helped, and then we've of course kind of saw that early, and just now we're trying to just really do what we can to help. We translate our docs to Japanese. If you go to our docs page, you can find the language switcher, and you can read our docs in Japanese. So trying to do things to help bolster our community there, because it just is so strong.
Yeah, we started following all the Japanese tweets that we get too, and try to respond to those.
There's so many every day.
There's so many.
Yeah, like we have this, so we have this tool to try to keep track of who's tweeting about Mastra or us questions, so we can try to respond. And it was only filtering for people that use like Mastra AI tagged us specifically in English language, and then we realized there's actually dozens a day. It seems like, and sometimes more than that, of just Japanese tweets. And thankfully on X you can click the translate post, because otherwise I'd be screwed.
Yeah, there's been good feedback too. It's not like all like people just saying you guys are amazing. It's actual good feedback there.
Yeah, I mean, we've been pointed out that a lot of things are broken, or a lot of things aren't working. You know, we've been doing this 6 months now or so, a little more than that, 7 months that we've been working on Mastra, and things are moving really fast. And so for those of you that are tuning in, if you have any thoughts or questions, you are probably watching this on LinkedIn or YouTube or X. Just drop us a comment, and we can answer any comments as we start to close out here. We've talked a little bit about Mastra with NextJS. We talked a little bit about AI security. We had some people come on that are participating in the Mastra.build hackathon. And we talked to, I guess, 2 people from the Mastra team, Shreeda and Ashwin.
Yeah, it's a jam-packed stream today.
Yeah, it's honestly just busy. And tomorrow's going to be another, might not be quite as long tomorrow, but just a lot of people wanting to get on. Tomorrow we have 2 different friends from YC companies coming on, one to promote another hackathon and one to show off kind of a new project that was built. So we got Eric coming on.
Oh, Eric's coming. Ooh, that's gonna be so sick.
Yeah, Eric's coming on. We're gonna talk a little bit about Pig. I want to talk to him a little bit about Banana, because that still holds a special place in my heart. If you don't know what those means, you'll have to tune in tomorrow and find out.
Exactly. Dang, that's gonna be a dope stream.
Yeah,
I'm excited for that.
And also, if you are building really cool things with Mastra, you should be in the hackathon. But even if you're not, if you're building something cool, you want to talk about it, you want to share it with the world, let us know. You can find us. You can find Abhi on X right there, x.com/AbhiIyer. You can also find me, x.com, smthomas3. Shameless plug, if you're one of the 374 watching this and you have not starred the Mastra repo on GitHub, what are you doing with your life? Please help us out.
Don't be a DJ.
Yeah, we would appreciate any stars, any help you can provide. And honestly, if you are using Mastra and you're running into problems, please go to our Discord. Please let us know. We do our best to try to respond to every. I mean, we tried to introduce like an SLA for ourselves to always respond within a certain number of hours to every Discord message. We're not always perfect, but we do try to respond. We do try to make sure that if you are running into problems, we do our best to help you. And honestly, that's our best source of feedback of things that are broken, things that need to be improved. And honestly, just we learn so much just from the things that you share with us in our Discord. So please join that.
The hackathon has been very illuminating in a lot of ways because we've started this in October, and I did like on my way to Japan, I shared with the whole team like this like trip down memory lane, and like our first like thing for doing this was like October 1st, and we've grown a lot and like, but we have so much more to go. And so if you're following us, like, yeah, we're gonna fix all the bugs eventually. We're gonna figure things out more. So just pump the stock while you can.
Yeah, and tell us what we need to fix so we know how to prioritize it.
That's what the hackathon really did. It showed that, I mean, as us as like creators, right, a whole team, as like the people building this thing, you never really get to use your product as much as the end user, right? They're building these cool things, and like all the things we see are great, but then the hackathon also illuminates where we suck, and that's where we have to get better. And that was dope. So thank you, everyone.
I mean, it really consolidates a large group of people starting from the beginning at the same time. And so the whole like getting started experience, it puts it under a microscope. And then you see things like our story of how front ends connect to Mastra needs to be tighter. It needs to be better. Yeah, it's just not good. Like we hold ourselves to pretty high standards. So I know a lot of people, if you're watching this, like you probably are like, oh, Mastra is cool. Like the docs are great. Internally, we're like, our docs suck.
They suck.
Our story around our examples around how to connect your front end to Mastra, it sucks. So we are, we're pretty harsh critics on ourselves. And so, but we only can get better if you tell us. So please join us in Discord, chat with us, let us know. Come on live streams if you have cool stuff to share. And if you know anyone else that's doing something cool in the AI agent space, please make some introductions. We're trying to showcase all the cool things that people are doing. And this is one of the ways we do that.
All right, we did it. 2 hours.
Yeah, we made it, dude. 2 hours, first 2 hour live stream. This is the most I think that's ever joined, right? This is the most we've ever had.
374 now.
Yeah, 383.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah,
383.
I feel like if we stick around for 3 more minutes, we're gonna hit 400 and we can celebrate.
Should we?
Yeah, we got nothing else. Like we went through. You like the new like icons on the bottom? It looks
man, I go on a trip and I come back and like we have all this technology now.
Yeah, we ask ourselves every day, how can we level this up just a little bit? I mean, I hope it looks somewhat polished, but we don't know what the hell we're doing. So we're just figuring it out. Hopefully you're all figuring it out with us. And this is Jeremy Alston. I want to share it with the world. Please do.
Yep, please do.
This is kind of funny. I'm not even going to say it out loud, but I just laughed when I read it. So
that's hilarious. A lot of people feel the same way.
Yes, I would say that is so. But yeah, let's just go ahead and wrap up. This has been a great stream. We got 2 hours. We did a lot. If you just are joining and you want to see what we covered, go to our YouTube channel. Do we have that somewhere where I can share it? We don't. I'm going to find it. But you can find us on YouTube, and all of our live streams are there. We'll probably try to like cut some of the segments up and release them on their own, because I think individually there's some really, really interesting things. So the Mastra YouTube, I'm going to display this on the screen, and then we're going to get the heck out of here. You can go there, right there. Find us on YouTube, Mastra-AI. You can see all of our past live streams. We do this every day, Monday through Friday. At least we have been for the last week or so. And we plan on continuing it. Normally it's an hour. Today, we got the bonus hour in. So I feel like I need to stand up and maybe stretch my legs.
Same.
All right, dude.